Hello, a really small topic called the rheumatic fever. Now you must be wondering why we're learning about fever in cardiovascular disease. You need to understand this rheumatic fever is an inflammatory disease that can affect your brain, the skin, the joints as well as the heart. As this disease progresses, or if you get repeated occasions or episodes of this rheumatic fever, this is going to eventually affect the heart, and this is how your infection and inflammation of the heart occurs, which is the pericarditis, myocarditis and the endocarditis. So before we actually go into those topics, I would like you to have an idea, and rather you need to really know what rheumatic fever is all about. Now, to give you a definition of rheumatic fever, it is an inflammatory disease that can develop when the strep throat or scarlet fever isn't treated properly. Now, when I say throat, is nothing but the sore throat that we all get during the very severe weather conditions, or when you're having a very bad cold, and all this is like a bacterial infection. So it's basically nothing but the sore throat, and when you do a swab out of that, you send it for culture and sensitivity, you realize that it is nothing but a streptococcus, or rather a bacterial infection. Now when you say strep throat, this is what you see, and as you look at this, the picture, you can see how swollen your tonsils are, okay, and your tongue is also coated, and this is a clear depiction of a streptococcal throat infection. And as children, this is a condition that usually affects children, and when you have repeated episodes of these rheumatic fever conditions, and this is going to be eventually affecting your joints, your heart, your skin as well as your nervous system. So strep throat, or it's also called as scarlet fever. So rheumatic fever often affects children who are between 5 and 15 years old, though it can develop in younger children and adults. So this is what I was telling you. So it's usually during your childhood, or it affects the children because that is when their immunity is building up. So when children are exposed to such kind of germs and infections, so that is why we say this rheumatic fever is commonly seen in children between 5 and 15 years of age. But as I mentioned, now repeated episodes of these can eventually cause a permanent damage to all the other systems in the body. So it can really affect the heart, and this can cause very damage to the heart valves and eventually leading to failure. Now what are the causes of this rheumatic fever? So it is usually caused by group A beta hemolytic streptococcal infection. So basically you can say that it is caused by the streptococcus streptococcus, that is a bacteria, and it's also when an antigen antibody response triggers tissue damage in specific areas of the body. So you know that when there is an infection, how your body produces these antibodies, when there is the microorganisms present, so it is trying to fight this infection. But when there is an antigen antibody reaction or a response, this may trigger to some sort of a muscle or rather a tissue damage in any areas of the body. So eventually this is how this can lead to infections and inflammation in the other parts of the body. Now the main important signs and symptoms of this rheumatic fever in children, you would see that yes, definitely there's a fever. There will be very painful and tender joints, okay, which means that in all fever situations or conditions, you may all would have experienced this, your joints are very, very painful and sore, okay. So there can also be red, hot and swollen joints, small painless bumps beneath the skin. So you can see something like a rashes, that is what is called as like red skin lesions, okay. It is also called as erythema marginatum, okay. So that is what is called as when you see in this picture here, the child is having some kind of a rashes here. So the medical term for that is erythema marginatum. It is nothing but the red skin lesions starting on the trunk and it's going to eventually spread, okay. Peripherally means towards the extremities as well. Yes, and the child may also exhibit sometimes symptoms like a chest pain, a heart murmur, severe fatigueness or tiredness, and also as children it is, so you will always see there is some kind of unusual behavior patterns as well, because obviously there's going to be agitation and irritability, so that can be a sudden outburst. So obviously when when children get a simple cold and fever, how they behave, so obviously that is expected in this condition as well. Now, Some of the common symptoms in this picture is really giving you a complete meaning about all these terminologies that can be used, and these are all the kind of signs and symptoms you will see in children when they are having this rheumatic fever. So chorea is nothing but involuntary movements of extremities and face, okay, and so that is nothing but like a twitching, and this can affect the speech of the child as well. Carditis, which is nothing but inflammation of all parts of the heart, and this can affect the valves of the heart as well. Okay. Erythema marginatum, which is nothing but you see the red lesions, rather like rashes, and these are nothing but which appears during this condition, and it is purely due to this streptococcal infection. Polyarthritis, which are nothing but the tender, painful joints, okay, joints which is nothing but your elbows, your knees, ankles, as well as wrists. So these can be very, very painful and swollen and tender. Fever, especially, obviously, you know, when there is an infection or invasion of microorganisms into the body, then what happens? Your body is trying to fight it out. So obviously there is a rise in body temperature resulting in the fever, and that is nothing but resulting from your sore throat. The child can also complain of severe abdominal pain, which occurs in some cases, and there can also be subcutaneous nodules, which are nothing but small, non-tender swellings over the joints. So these are nothing but, again, they can be very, very small bumps that you can notice, and they're nothing but they're called as a subcutaneous nodules. So these are some of the signs and symptoms that a child can exhibit in case of rheumatic fever. Now, what are the risk factors? Now, risk factors of this particular disease condition is nothing but it can usually affect age groups between 7 and 15 years old, inheritance, prematurity, inherited connective tissue anomalies, unfavorable surroundings. Okay, so this can also be inherited, which is nothing but it can be sent down from the parents, and where you get it, you know, like as you're born. And also it can be like as a child is growing, there's a lot of developmental changes, how the child is child's immunity is building up, and also it can be due to all these unfavorable surroundings, that is when the child is living in you know, not a very hygienic condition, or especially when the child is exposed to this cold temperatures and very, very system. What are the complications of this particular condition? Yes, it can lead to chronic rheumatic carditis, which is nothing but the inflammation of the heart. It can lead to valvular heart disease. So we have already finished with the valvular heart disease. So you can see that, and in that, if you remember, I had mentioned about endocarditis. So the infection and inflammation of the inner lining of the heart. So that is what happens due to the repeated episodes of this rheumatic fever. Cardiomyopathy and leading to heart failure, atrial arrhythmias, and pulmonary and systemic embolism, which are nothing but you know, leading to blood clots. So anywhere affecting your lungs and anywhere in your circulation as well. So this is what happens, and these are all the complications, and eventually this can be very, very drastic, especially when it starts affecting your you know, the nervous system and the heart, and this can cause major drastic problems, eventually leading to heart failure and even death. Now, how do we diagnose this rheumatic fever? Now, we have a criteria for this. This is called as a Duckett-Jones diagnostic criteria. So how are we going to do this? So anyone, a person or individual exhibiting these signs and symptoms, and we have a criteria to follow. How do we come to a conclusion that this is, yes, rheumatic fever? So we have something called as a major criteria and the minor criteria. Now, the acronym for the major criteria is CASES, or it's called as the short form. Now, CASES stands for carditis, arthritis, subcutaneous nodules, erythema marginatum, and also Sydenham's chorea. Okay, and I'm sure I explained this with the help of a diagram previously, so you would know what these meanings actually, what these terms actually mean. Now, these all signs and symptoms fall under the category of the major criteria, and in the minor criteria, you will have FRAP, which stands for fever, raised ESR, which is nothing but your erythrocyte sedimentation rate, that is you would do, or you know, you will get to know these values when you do a blood test, and especially in case of an infection, you will know that your erythrocyte sedimentation rates are higher. Arthralgia, that is nothing but pain, and also prolonged PR interval, this is relating to your ECG, and also previous RF. The previous RF is something but your previous episodes of rheumatic fever. So these all fall into the minor criteria, and the acronym for that is nothing but the FRAP. Now, how do do we come to a conclusion that yes, it is a rheumatic fever episode? So we have saying that there should be two major criteria options and one or one major plus two minor. Okay, either way, so it can be two major plus two minor, or it can also be one major plus two minor. So any of these signs and symptoms that you see in your patient, and when you come to a conclusion that these are being exhibited by the patient, yes, then you come to a conclusion that this patient has got an a streptococcal infection, and yes, this could be condition of rheumatic fever, and this is called as the Duckett-Jones criteria. Now, what happens during this condition? So the pathophysiology. So what happens is, yes, we know that it starts off like a sore throat, and the sore throat is nothing but the streptococcal bacterial infection. So this is basically caused by the streptococcus bacteria, and if it is really untreated, so if it is not being paid attention to, and if it is not being treated promptly, then what happens? So it kind of invades your system. Okay, so and that is how it spreads into the other parts of the body. So and eventually leading to rheumatic fever, and also, as we saw on the first slide itself, it can affect your brain, your skin, your heart as well. So and when you say the heart, there are different layers of the heart. So once the bacteria is in the stream, in your bloodstream, and it can go to any portion of your body, and finally what happens, they just affect those tissues and start damaging those tissues. So when it comes to the heart, it starts affecting the different layers of the heart. So it is like the pericarditis, pericardium, the myocardium, and the endocardium. So once it goes into the endocardium, that is when it starts affecting your valves as well. Okay, and then the valves, when you know that it is causing endocarditis already, yes, that is definitely going to cause infection and inflammation to the valves. And when you say valvular heart disease, by now you know that what am I referring to? It is definitely valvular stenosis or valvular regurgitation. And with this, you definitely know what the complications are. Yes, the heart is not able to pump effectively, or rather the heart muscle becomes weak due to excessive pumping, and eventually leading to, it's already hypertrophied, weakened, and finally leading to heart failure. So this is the pathophysiology of what actually goes on when it all begins as a sore or a scarlet fever caused due to streptococcal infection. Now, how do we diagnose this particular condition? Rather, you have, yes, we can, the criteria you know now, that's the Duckett-Jones criteria. Apart from that, yes, you need certain investigations to be done, which is nothing but the laboratory findings. As I told you, you need to find out your ESR levels, okay? A complete blood profile is very, very important to know regarding your HP status, and also to know your swab, the throat culture, okay? Sensitivity has to be sent. You take a swab and send it out to the pathology for cultural sensitivity, so you really can rule out, yes, if it is really a bacterial infection or just a viral infection. And yes, if it is a bacterial infection, what sort of bacteria is actually causing this infection? And as we know that, yes, it could cause carditis, and then maybe the patient will also be exhibiting some signs and symptoms of fatigue and chest pain, arrhythmias, and of difficulty in breathing. So what happens, there will also be tests that we definitely do an ECG, that is electrocardiogram, and as I told you, the prolonged PR interval. So all these are signs and symptoms which are showing that, yes, this could be a cause of rheumatic fever. And also, as we told you, that it's going to be affecting the different layers of the heart. Yes, that means the heart's pumping action is going to be compromised due to this infection. So definitely I'm going to be doing an echocardiogram, which is going to help us find out the cardiac contractility, which is nothing but how well your ventricles are contracting. And rheumatic fever is mainly a clinical diagnosis. No single diagnostic sign or specific laboratory test is available for this diagnosis, and the diagnosis is based on modified Jones criteria. So this is why we say, so basically just looking at an ECG and saying that yes, it's got a prolonged PR interval, you cannot rule out that yes, this is a condition or this is a case of rheumatic fever, no. And just basically seeing if the patient is having a palpitation or an arrhythmia, you cannot say that yes, this person is having rheumatic fever. That is the reason why we have that particular criteria to follow. Either you have two symptoms from the two major, or one symptom from that one major, and followed by the two minors. So either way, when you know that the person is exhibiting these symptoms, and we know that you need to follow that mnemonic saying that cases and FRAP. So based on that, you will rule out following this Duckett-Jones criteria case of rheumatic fever. Now, how do we treat this particular condition? Yes, definitely we know that it's a bacterial infection caused by the Streptococcus bacteria. So yes, antibiotics will be the prime management or prime line of management. So mainly now the treatment also can be now if this is an initial stage where the person the first episode where the person has come across, so we can start in as a primary prevention method, so kind of trying to eradicate the streptococci. So basically you will start the patient on antibiotics, anti-inflammatory medications, and which is nothing but your aspirin or the steroids. And also it could be like the supportive management, in that is nothing but to manage the complications and also to make sure to prevent the secondary attacks or the secondary infection. So which means one episode you have already gone through this infection, so yes, you will be managed thoroughly on antibiotics, you will be given anti-inflammatories, you will be done they will do a swab culture and sensitivity test, and so everything is ruled out thoroughly, and you will have to follow that course of antibiotic therapy. And for the first strep throat infection, that is maybe the patient is being put on penicillin. So again, when you say penicillin, you need to rule out if the patient is allergic to any antibiotic. So that is also one of the major criteria. And or rather watch for the patient, especially when the person is having penicillin. You need to observe the patient, and the patient and the family has to be informed regarding this. So once the patient gets the first dose of penicillin, you need to really watch for any signs of reaction. Okay? And then finally, you just treat the patient symptomatically, and prophylactic long-term anti-strep therapy given to anyone who has had rheumatic fever. So again, as I told you, the whole idea is in the first occasion or the first episode itself, we are trying to stop the virus and make sure that the patient recovers safely, rather than allowing the patient to go through another same condition. Now, the medical management will include antimicrobial therapy. Penicillin is a drug of choice. Rest to maintain the optimal cardiac function, because you know that yes, it affects the heart. Corticosteroids will also be given. Again, as I told you, yes, the person may be having high blood pressure and issues like that, so you will be on beta blockers and ACE inhibitors. Also, as we know that this is going to be affecting the heart will not be in a position to pump adequately. So you know all the signs and symptoms that the patient exhibits. So obviously there could be edema, puffiness. So all this is nothing but fluid overload. So yes, the person is going to be on diuretics, and also the phenobarbital and diazepam, that is to manage chorea, which is nothing but the involuntary twitching actions or the moments, as I told you, and this can eventually lead to the slurring of speech as well. So that is something, but it's affecting your brain or the nervous system. So these are all the kind of first line of management we do for a condition like this. Now, for the nursing management, yes, obviously you start out with a deep history collection and physical examination. So obviously the nursing management for any kind of condition, it usually you just have to follow the ADPI. Okay, so again for that we know that, or rather SOAPIA. So you remember that. So SOAPIA, again, it gives you a deeper understanding, because you know that it's very, very important to collect the subjective data and objective data. So very, very important. And what is the nursing diagnosis for a condition like this? Yes, definitely the breathing is going to be affected. So because you know that the patient is in a lot of congestion. Again, the patient may be having breathing with open mouth, because he may be totally congested. Again, difficulty you know how the tonsils are big, and again it's red and swollen, and a lot of difficulties, even when simple swallowing or even drinking water can really be difficult for the child. So you know that yes, the breathing is going to be affected. Even the imbalanced nutrition status, because the child is not going to be eating properly, and it's because of this condition. Again, yes, the major priorities will be ineffective breathing pattern and decreased cardiac output. Yes, you know that how it's caused. And also followed by yes, fever, because that's another major thing, because you know that it's an infection, so fever, body temperature is going to be rising, and as well, so hyperthermia is also a nursing diagnosis there related to the microorganisms, as manifested by the high temperature of 38 degrees Celsius. Okay, so this is what it is. So ineffective breathing pattern, hyperthermia, decreased cardiac output, anxiety, imbalanced nutrition status, activity intolerance, risks of the particular condition, and last but not the least will be deficient knowledge. So you just prioritize the patient's problems. So what the patient exhibits. So basically the signs and symptoms. So we know that for any kind of disease, it's very, very important you treat the patient symptomatically. That is going to help the patient in a lot of ways. So whatever the signs and symptoms are exhibited, you treat it accordingly, and along with whatever investigations that you have sent for and the reports that you have received. So based on that also you will be able to provide the adequate treatment. Now, In this condition, what is the kind of counseling and health education that you can give to the patient and the family? So now, obviously, when you say the patient, yes, you won't be talking to the child regarding this, but yes, of course, to the parents. And if it's an older person, yes, you're going to be talking to the patient as well. So you will be teaching and educating the patient and the family regarding the prevention of such infections. So we told, I've also mentioned this, like, trying to avoid such kind of conditions which even gives you a sore throat, or trying to avoid the exposure to this cold weather conditions. And also, when you're in the hospital, making sure that the child is being monitored, making sure the child's environment is clean and complete bed rest, and also the treating the patient adequately or promptly by following the pathology report, administering medications like antibiotics and aspirin, and also at the same time looking into the nutritional needs of the patient, and also limiting the activity, because we know that the patient may be extremely fatigued and finding it difficult in moving around. And also when we know it is a child, he's going to be very, very irritable, and also he will not be in his normal phase of his life, because again that how irritable or how restless the children get, and especially with a cold and a fever. Again, you will be instructing the parents very strictly about the antibiotics, the importance it plays, and how to complete the course of antibiotic therapy. Very important to keep the fluids as well, and also making sure that even if it is not a big meal, the child is going to be having sips and also small meals, so that just to ensure that he is eating adequately and properly. And on discharge, again, you're going to be educating the patient and the family regarding all ways of preventing infections like these, and also focusing mainly on the diet, a well-balanced diet, warm drinks, whatever soothes the throat, following the antibiotic therapy once it is over. And after that, after this recovery from this particular infection, try to avoid situations where the child can end up having another episode. So we do not want these episodes to be recurring, because we know the complications of these are very, very drastic. So eventually it's going to be putting a lot of pressure on your heart and your brain and the nervous system, and also we don't want any such complications occurring to the child. So the most intelligent way of educating the family is telling them how to avoid this such kind of repeated ever again. So with this, we finish this topic, rheumatic fever. I shall see you in the next session. Thank you.